You should have the potential for it. However, in your case, for some reason, you possess a streak of masochistic instability. You must be a king too, if you truly want to make Luffy the king of the pirates. These are the words that Scopper Gaban left for Sanji when asked about Conqueror's haki. And for as powerful as Sanji is, just as Scopper surmised, he is restrained, saddled, if you will, by a very persistent self-doubt. The source of this can be traced all the way back to his childhood in the Germa Kingdom. He was constantly picked on, tortured, and vehemently labeled as a failure by both his father Judge and by his three brothers, Ichiji, Niji, and Yonji. In fact, had he not been shown kindness from his mother Sora and his sister Reiju, it is unlikely that he would be here today. This served as the roots for his complex. But there is one other major source or catalyst, if you will. This being his initial encounter with Zeff, during which Sanji experienced months of starvation only to realize that the whole time Zeff had it so much worse. All of this created a sort of self-loathing, self-sacrificing complex within Sanji. One where he is willing to sacrifice his own dreams and well-being in desperate attempts to prove his value to others. This complex is something that persists until this day, and is very likely what Scopper recognized. And it is this very complex, or parts of it anyway, that he will need to overcome to become the king that Luffy needs. Today, let us go over more in depth just what Sanji has gone through, how he might come face to face with it during his fight against Killingham, and what sort of abilities he might gain upon discovering what his version of being a king really looks like. Emotions are a weakness, and by purging them, we, the Germa, can truly achieve the power we seek. This is the sentiment from Vinsmoke Judge when he kicked off the plan of creating his children the perfect super soldiers. And this was the environment that Sanji was born into. From a young age, it seemed like Sanji was different from his siblings, especially his three brothers, Ichiji, Niji, and Yonji. He quickly fell behind in training activities and was totally open for his brothers to pick on, and not even in the traditional sibling sense that brothers pick on younger brothers. Soon it was discovered that the modifications on him were deemed a failure. By Judge's standards, of course. We know now that this was due to the efforts of Sanji's mother Sora, who took drugs on her own to counteract the modifications and grant Sanji his emotions. Soon, he was enslaved by his own father, practically disowned. While he begged for his father, apologized profusely for being born weak, something that was not even his fault, his pleas fell entirely on deaf ears. This marks the beginning of Sanji's complex, the moment in which he truly began to feel useless. And things would only snowball for him from here. However, there were two shining lights in this time of darkness. And this is very important because I believe that in the end, it will be these moments, these individuals, that Sanji draws upon when the time comes for him to become a king. The two here are his mother Sora and his sister Reiju. It is also worth noting that these two pave the foundation of Sanji's strong moral code. In this instance, the part of it towards his treating of women. But it is not limited to just that. With that said, his mother showed him nothing but love and compassion, encouraging him to be his own person, trying the meals that he cooks for her with a smile on her face, no matter how bad they may be, and instilling upon Sanji that his father Judge and the way he sees things is not the rule of the world. No, Judge is merely an exception. Reiju was different from her brothers in that some of her emotions remained intact. While she did gain the physical super soldier aspects and lost her ability to defy her father Judge, she retained her empathy and her emotion. This led her to naturally feel bad for Sanji and to recognize that his place is not with the Germa, but instead out in the world. During a Germa raid, she helps him escape. And in this moment, even Judge shows his humanity and is unable to kill Sanji himself, quoting that even he is sentimental to a fault. And so he sees Sanji's escape as a good opportunity to rid himself of the single failure in his life. Well, at least, okay, Judge probably failed multiple times in his life. Hold on, back up on that one. The single failure in this plan to create super soldier children. That's a little bit better. We're going to go with that one. He makes one final request of Sanji, a request that surely led to his scars and disdain for the Germa, as if he hadn't already garnered this through everything they put him through. This final request was for Sanji to never again mention that he is a son of Judge, that he is a Vinsmoke. Still a child, Sanji and even Reiju are both in tears over this. While this firmly planted the seeds of Sanji's self-loathing complex, we know that Judge's ideas are the things that are flawed. In the world of One Piece, through the system of Haki, emotions and will literally equate to power. And that, good or bad, the top tiers of this world achieve that level of power largely in part to their emotions. This is why in the current story, Sanji is already vastly superior to the entire Vinsmoke family. I would have put him above them before he unlocked his genetic modifications while retaining his emotions. When you put those two things together, he runs circles around Judge and his three brothers, and frankly probably Reiju as well, purely from a power standpoint, although he would never exercise that against her specifically. These seeds, right, are the primary step of what Sanji must overcome, except even on his path towards becoming a king. That is not all there is to Sanji's character origin, though, as he has one more defining set of circumstances for us to have a look at. For this, we turn to his second backstory and his time spent with Zeff. Here he encountered what we can consider to be his first true, genuine father figure. But this also kicked off the second main part of Sanji's complex. But before we get into that, let us review what happened. After escaping from the Vinsmokes, Sanji found himself on a ship of chefs, most likely to both improve his own skills and to search for his dream, the All Blue. The ship is attacked by Zeff and the Cook Pirates. Sensing that they will all probably die anyway, Sanji stands against them. And while he, who is still a child at the time, fails, it is still impressive that he had the will to do so in the first place. Granted, this came from a source of him thinking he was going to die anyway. So he's like, if I'm going down, I'm going down with a fight, which is a little bit different from what he's going to need when it comes time to gain his Conqueror spirit. During the ensuing conflict with Zeff, Sanji states again that he won't die until he finds the All Blue. And while everyone on the ship, friend and foe alike, laughs or criticizes him, there is one individual who does not. And that is Zeff. In this moment, Sanji has begun to impress Zeff. And this right here is a very important turn of events. This is because a storm begins to brew, prompting the Cook Pirates to finish looting the ship before attempting to head out. In that moment, a wave hits the ship Sanji is on, washing him out to sea. And Zeff, who is beginning to see himself in Sanji, simply cannot let him go. He breaks the mast of one of the ships and with it leaps into the water after Sanji. Now both ships are more than likely destroyed in the ensuing storm, and Sanji with Zeff wash up on a small island. Now here we encounter a common misconception due to how the anime portrayed this scene. Zeff gives Sanji all of their food, and to feed himself takes off his own leg with a rock. We won't talk about how he actually survived like this. It's a goofy pirate manga. But in the anime, they depict this as him losing his leg while trying to save Sanji. That is the big difference there. He didn't lose it saving Sanji. He lost it so that he could feed Sanji all of the actual food. In any case, when Sanji discovers this, he pleads with Zeff to tell him why he would make such a sacrifice. This is when Zeff tells him, it is because we share a dream. A dream of finding the All Blue. And here, we see the second part of Sanji's complex take shape. And that is his willingness, or sometimes desire, to sacrifice himself and his own dreams for the sake of others. I believe that unlike the self-loathing he holds for himself, which he will need to overcome, this willingness to risk it all for others, well, it just might end up becoming the root of his version of being a king. We now know about Sanji's past, which provides the basis for the way his character is today. While writing this video, I came to realize that while he certainly does show moments of doubt, which we will go over, his version of a king's disposition has already been shown to us in the story all this time. But first, let us talk about his enduring self-doubt. And the main example I want to use of this is his turmoil in Wano, specifically during his fight with Queen. Sanji came face to face with the decision to use the raid suit. And his primary fear here was that if he were to keep using it, like his brothers, he would become an emotionless tool. He even thought about Luffy, wondering which version of him would serve the Pirate King better. The Sanji who can't fight women, or the Sanji who is a super soldier that at the behest of his captain would take on any foe. Now we know the answer here, and Sanji did land on it as well, but I question, had someone like Luffy or Zoro been in that position, would they have even had the thought of becoming emotionless at all? Or would they have merely, even in some way foolhardily, pressed forward with full conviction that they would come out still being themselves regardless of which action they took? Yet Sanji is different. He is more realistic than the other two. But it is their unwavering conviction that makes them conquerors. I mentioned earlier that Sanji's conviction takes on a different form. And I think that all he needs to tap into this is a small but challenging change of his mindset. To explore this a bit more, let us have a look at the Baratier arc, the second part of Sanji's complex, and have a bit of a comparison between him and Zoro. During Zoro's confrontation with Mihawk, he shows resolve that borders on insanity when he is given a choice between death or his dream. And what he says here is that he would rather die than suffer defeat and the loss of his dream. It is this drive, this ambition, this insanity that shows the makings of a conqueror. And while Sanji respects the hustle, he does not at all understand it, and even shouts at how easy it is to abandon your stupid dream. While in this moment, we clearly see the difference between the two. Sanji may not know it yet, but he showed very similar resolve, very similar drive and ambition, possibly even insanity, in this very same arc. And it happens in his fight against Pearl. While Sanji was more than capable of annihilating Pearl, he refused to fight back nor back down when Zeff was being threatened. In fact, before the fight with Pearl even began, he told Jin to point his pistol towards him. He stated, "I will never leave this boat. Zeff's home, Zeff's dream." Again, while Sanji may not realize it yet, this will, this conviction towards protecting those he cares about the most, will end up becoming the very source of his conqueror's spirit, namely when he learns to direct it towards his captain, Monkey D. Luffy. And in the current arc, he has been given the perfect setup for making this final step. Before we continue, if you like my videos, if you like hearing me yap or what I have to say, or listen, if you simply love my beard, that's a little blocked by this new pop filter, but if you simply love my beard, I would invite you to please like, subscribe, hit that bell icon, leave a comment. All of this is very important to small channels, which mine most certainly is, and I can assure you that I would greatly appreciate it. Now, back to your regularly scheduled programming. Now, for most of Elbaf, I was locked in on the Sanji versus Sommers matchup. This is because Sommers is basically the opposite of Sanji. It felt perfect. But I am now starting to see why Killingham makes so much sense. And this is because in order to become a king, Sanji must face what he fears the most. And if the story has taught us anything, it is that what he fears the most is the version of himself that has abandoned not only his dream, but more importantly, his morals as well. The version of himself that strikes woman. The version of himself that has foregone his emotions to become like his brothers. And if there was ever a character in this story capable of really pushing Sanji into confronting these things and conquering them permanently. It is Saint Rimu Shifu Killingham, who will bring out that which Sanji fears the most himself in the form of a dream demon. Yes, Sanji will be forced to come face to face with both Killingham and a version of himself that he fears the most. And it is this combination, right, that will bring about the circumstances needed for him to truly become a king. What I believe he will need to achieve here is simple in words, but very difficult in action. This direct confrontation with himself will clear up what is muddied within his mind and within his heart, which is that, one, there's no need to have so much self-doubt and self-depreciation. Instead, Sanji should love and respect and wholeheartedly believe in who he is as a person. Also, that his moral code, his convictions, his willingness to put it all on the line for others, it is not the weakness that Judge made it out to be, but instead serves as the core tenet of his Conqueror's spirit. And when he comes to fully believe in these things and trust in the positive influences on his life, Sora, Reiju, Zeff, Luffy, his tendencies towards self-doubt will evaporate. In that moment, in that instant, not only will he conquer himself, not only will he conquer his complex, but through this newly found power, this unlocked kingly spirit in Conqueror's Haki, he will conquer and defeat Killingham as well. And now I want to talk a little bit about how unlocking Conqueror's Haki might affect Sanji's powers and abilities. And I will admit, this part is going to be a little looser than the rest of them. It's really just me spitballing some of what I think, right? So, for starters, I think it's pretty obvious that he, along with Zoro, are going to get both standard Conqueror's Haki and advanced Conqueror's Haki. If for no other reason that I believe the weakness the God's Knights hold is directly tied to the use of advanced Conqueror's Haki. And so, for people like Rayleigh and Scopper to have trounced to them in the past, they need to have the coding, the advanced application. And we know our boys, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, well, they are going to surpass the previous generation of Roger, Rayleigh, and Scopper. So it's pretty evident to me that Sanji will gain coding. So he's going to be able to apply this to his regular attacks and techniques, right? And like with other Conqueror's Haki users, it's going to generate the Black Lightning. If he were to clash with another Conqueror, there's going to be the space between them. Look, their attacks aren't touching. The sky is splitting. You know, I do firmly believe that both Zoro and Sanji will get sky-splitting feats in this story. But for Sanji, I also think this is going to lead to the true definition of Blackleg Sanji, and that is going to be through the form of him unlocking Black Flames. So we have Diable Jambe, which is red. We have Ifrit Jambe, which is blue. That evolution came from his Germa enhancements. And I believe the final step of his Jambe evolution will be Black Flames, which could take the form of a new, like, kingly Jambe or conquering Jambe. Or maybe it's really just a combination of Ifrit or Diable paired with the use of Conqueror's Haki coding, yielding those Black Flames. And I think that would be super, super cool. He'll probably have new attacks. Oda's going to give him new attacks, right? Definitely based off some kind of cooking technique or food or tool, you know, like the rest of his attacks are. But I also think he's going to be able to use his existing attacks augmented with Conqueror's Haki. Exactly how Luffy does it, and probably exactly how Zoro does it. Now, we know with Zoro, he has a unique application of Conqueror's Haki through Ashura. And so Sanji, you know, he might also gain something similar to that, or these black flames are going to be his version of that unique Conqueror's Haki application. But yes, he's going to get the base Conquerors and the base coding as well, and that's what's going to allow him to really put down Killingham, wipe that smug look right off his face, free the children, inadvertently defeat Zaza without the need to even touch her. These things are definitely going to happen. And so that's the video. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you agree with what I said? Have I totally lost it? What do you think Sanji's going to go through in unlocking Conqueror's Haki? What kind of powers do you think he's going to get? Please sound off in the comments below. I'd love to continue the discussion there. And again, if you like the video, please like and subscribe and hit that bell icon. And with that, I would like each and every one of you to have an excellent rest of your day.